Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Welcome back to Harry's Highlights. On this video, we're going to talk about the book, The 5 Habits of Personal Leadership. Now this is about understanding habits that inspire purposeful living. So what I want us to talk about here, the philosophies it talks about and I want you to understand, is about understanding that there's a real difference between personal leadership and general leadership. Personal leadership is all about understanding how to basically, what I call parent yourself. It's about finding ways to keep yourself self-managed. To keep yourself on track and to make sure you're always moving forward in the right direction. There's lots of different parts and philosophies and angles to it. It's about understanding how to work with you the best way you can and then push and progress yourself forward so that you're always trying to maximize your achievements and reach your full potential and purpose in life. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about today is about understanding rising above the limits that life puts in front of us. That's all to do with understanding that just because a certain situation has presented itself, just because a certain environment has been created, just because you're in a certain area of your life at that point in time, it's about rising above the limits that part of time might be telling you is only available now. It's about seeing that as instead of seeing it as that because of this environment or because of this situation, this is as good as it gets. It's about understanding how to rise above that. It's about controlling the environment based on what you want, not based on what's been given to you. So part of that is understanding that how when you make a decision or whatever it is you want to achieve, just because the environment doesn't dictate that or doesn't is conducive of that, just because the situation or circumstances aren't conducive of that either, that doesn't mean you're restricted to that situation. It's been understanding more about how you can your potential is only capped by your imagination. It's only restricted by your own thoughts. It's only limited by the decisions you make. When you can understand that one, that there's just so much more control available to you than what you realize, you can then rise above the limits that life puts in front of you, because those limits are only there if you allow them to be. The second one that we're talking about there is about the significance of preparation. Now, a lot of people seem to overlook the importance of preparation. Now, for a lot of people, they might have been quite used to normally just getting up and doing something and just winging it and getting pretty good. Some people might have experienced it at school, for example. They might leave it to the last night, just before the assignment's due. They whip up something, hand it in, and they might get a B or a C. Something that gets them to pass. And some people might find that also in life as well, they've had a similar situation where basically at the last minute or just without preparing, they sort of get up there and just make it up as they go, and it works out pretty well. But when you're really looking at personal leadership, is that really the best way to lead yourself? Understanding that there's a lot of significance in preparation is that it can take your results from good to great. It can really be that huge difference between a mediocre results and amazing results. Understanding that when they talk about things like the prior planning prevents poor performance. That's all to do with understanding that when you role play, when you do rehearsal, when you do any sort of preparation beforehand, you're able to iron out a lot of kinks, you're able to work out any sort of faults or problems before that you're there on stage or whatever, or presenting in some form. If you're able to look at things in a way of, okay, if I evaluate it all now, the second version I do up there or in front of someone or I present or perform will be a lot better than that first one. So the significance of preparation is understanding just how much of a difference it can make. It can take something, like I said, from good to great. It can mean that what you thought sounded really good in your head, when you say it out loud, could really be quite bad. It could be quite offensive. There could be a lot of different things that you missed. But by preparing for it, you're eliminating the risks, you're eliminating the potential challenges, setbacks, and basically any opportunity or minimizing the opportunities for you to fail. So understand the significance of preparation is about putting in the time and effort beforehand to make the end result better. Now, the other one there is about the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And that's understanding that no matter how big a task is, no matter how big a challenge may be, no matter how difficult or long or challenging something may seem, everything always begins with the first step. If you break it down into its bite-sized pieces, if you look at things in a more of a manageable situation or circumstance, you can then overcome anything. Anybody that wanted to climb the highest mountains in the world were conquered step by step. The deepest levels of the ocean were conquered, metaphorically step by step. the longest distances ever traveled were conquered step by step. Anything in life can be broken down into its most simplest form. And with that, you can then have manageable bite-sized pieces that you can then take on board one by one. So no matter how insurmountable something may look, if you deconstruct it and you break it down and reverse engineer it, reevaluate it in a way that's more easier to understand, you can then take on anything. There's a great saying that how do you eat an elephant? And they say one bite at a time. That's because even though it's an elephant, you don't have to take on that whole thing in one gulp. You don't have to basically tackle it all at once. If you take it one bite at a time, eventually you'll consume the entire elephant. Exact same thing when it comes to problems, when it comes to challenges, when it comes to any task, when it comes to anything that you're undergoing. If you take it one bite at a time, based on persistence and consistency, you'll eventually consume it all. You'll eventually overcome it. You'll eventually conquer it. And that's what it means to be. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Is an understanding that no matter what it is, that it can always be overcome. Next one there is about don't run with your legs, run with your heart. Now this is about understanding that so much of the time we get caught up with the logic and things. We get caught up with this is the cold, hard, calculated facts of it. And it becomes the what, the how. And we miss out on the why. The why is to do with the emotion, the passion you feel, the value that you experience or that drove you to do this in the beginning. Running with your heart is to be able to look at something and feel compelled, to be pulled towards it rather than pushed towards it. When you're pulled towards something, it's where you feel like its own gravitational pull. It's something that you can't help but feel like you want to be closer to it. When you're pushed, it's more of a reluctancy. It's something else behind you telling you to do it because it's the right thing to do, because you don't really want to, but it's what you should do. When you're pulled towards it, you feel like it's something you want to do. It's an emotional feeling. When you run with your legs, it's all logical, it's all based on facts. When you run with your heart, it's something that you do based on emotion and passion. And it's the reason why people get up in the morning. It's the reason why that keeps them there late at night. It's something that you do based on passion, not based on discipline. The next one there is about understanding how you can basically, the refreshing significance in taking off. Now this is understanding that there's so much significance in just before you're about to undergo something. Just that moment just before then, like when you're about to start something, that feeling of understanding that like you should feel important, you should feel accomplished, you should feel that like you're about to undertake something and you're about to take pride in that and courage in that you're trying something, you're about to start something, you're about to do more than what you did yesterday. There's a refreshing significance in that just before you take off, in that understanding that, here it is. I'm about to follow through on what I said I was about to follow through on. I've done all the preparation, I've put together everything I can, and now I'm about to do it. That refreshing significance is something that should be embraced and should be thought of as that, like, it's the small things matter. You need to focus on those and then understand that, like, we always celebrate the bigger things, we always celebrate the big achievements, but when you're about to start something, when you're about to put your first foot forward, that should be celebrated, and the courage it took to get to that point and then follow through and take that first step. There needs to be more focus and celebration on that, and understanding that it should be a refreshing feeling of knowing that, after all this, I'm actually about to do it. Now the last one there is the sky is the limit. Or the sky is not the limit. Understanding that, like, you don't need to put caps and restrictions on yourself. That you decide just how far, how high you want to soar. If you decide that, like, there's a great saying that if the sky really was the limit, why is there footprints on the moon? That's a great example of understanding that just because something looks like it's the ceiling, looks like it's the restriction, looks like it's the cap, doesn't always mean that's the case. Sometimes that's just the illusion that you need a breakthrough. Sometimes that's just the illusion that's going to keep you where you're at. But when you can realize that it's not the limit, that you decide where your limit is, you decide what's going to be where you stop, where you end, or there might not be an end to it. But basically understand that that's in your control, and your belief and understanding is what will decide on where you begin and stop. So to quickly summarize, the 5 habits of personal leadership is understanding the habits that inspire purposeful living. Living with a purpose, not just existing. It's about rising above the limits life puts in front of us. Understanding the significance of preparation and that you can prevent a lot of poor performance by planning previously. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Understanding no matter how big the task, challenge, or anything it is that you're about to undergo, that it can all be broken down and deconstructed into manageable bite-sized pieces. Understand that don't run with your legs, run with your heart. Remember the why you're doing something, not just the what. Understanding the refreshing significance before taking off. That you should be celebrating the courage it took to get there and the courage it's going to take that first step. And lastly, the sky is not the limit, and that you decide where it ends. That the illusions that are there to be broken through. Now, if you can follow these, you'll understand the 5 habits to personal leadership. Now, we're going to make a lot more of these videos for this training series to help you with the personal development goals. That's all for now, though. So until next time, leave a comment below, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next episode of Harry's Highlights.